So how incredibly beautiful to just feel the richness of the gathering and the wisdom light, right? How just by listening to each other, just by truly openly receiving each other, what happens, right? Just entering the living flow of life, entering the living current, and and just being carried by the flow of life, the intelligence, the grace, the glory, and and this incredible opportunity to, in receiving each other, receiving our very own self, all this is mine, all of this is mine, right? Entering into the current is entering into that flow of unity consciousness, which is flowing within itself to know itself, like in a flow of constant surrender to itself, a flow of pure devotion to itself, never ever leaving itself, never turning away from itself. As we enter that flow, we get to receive the nourishment and the richness of life, and recognize what it feels like to be nourished, and nourished in all the ways, nourished in the ways that happen when we don't resist anything, right? Nourished in the ways when we recognize that all of life is a play that is happening out of our own consciousness, creating a reflection for us to see. So to see the reflection of the beauty and the grace of who we are, a reflection of reality, and bring that feeling of the awe and the wonder and the celebration and the joy and the delight. And also to bring a reflection of the unloved, unmet parts of ourselves, and to bring a reflection of what we might want to be resisting, what we might want to be different, where there's conditioning, where there's protection. And that everything that happens that feels like it has some kind of intensity or challenge or resistance or stress around it is always offering us an opportunity to illuminate and to receive ourself more deeply. And even if we receive that through the expression of a seeming other, whatever's stirred in us, there's the opportunity, there's the possibility. Whatever happens in life that stirs us into that frequency of limitation, of fear, of deficiency, of a sense of lack, whenever it seems like the mind is really going a mile a minute, and a few mentioned that sense of, wow, when the mind feels like it takes a grip, it feels like such a grip. And that's okay. Because we're not here to change the mind. We're here to realize that the mind is not the master. And that what's awake and aware of the mind is never ever touched, however wild and crazy, frenzied the mind might seem to be, that the true essence nature is never ever touched. And the way that integration happens in the moment is always through the presence of love and kindness, through the presence of presence, the presence that welcomes, the presence that includes, the presence that sees, the presence that knows, right? And so it's never about trying to fix or change or try to impose anything upon what seems like mental activity or distraction, or it's never about trying to impose or change. It's always about illumination. It's illumination that brings revelation. And revelation isn't moving in the technology of fear and division and lack. It's the technology of love that includes and welcomes. It's the all-encompassing frequency of love. that brings revelation. So whatever is happening, of course, we also can't bring an efforting, like a trying to include, of course, isn't the true frequency of inclusivity. And so in a way, it's always just about being here with what is, opening to the fullness of the moment, opening to what is here now, and just okay, this is what's here now. And having an awareness of not looking to employ a technology that will limit or divide or judge the moment, that not employing a technology that collaborates with a sense of division or lack or limitation, but just opening to a very simple yes. Okay, this. Okay, this. This is what's here right now. And what if there's nothing to do, nothing to change, nothing to fix? And of course, as we deepen and mature and refine, we realize, well, the light is always here, and of course the light is here. And even like it, if it feels like it is not here, there's something that knows that it is still here. And it's this subtle allowing in the moment for there to be a settling, for there to be an including, a welcoming, for there to be an illumination, and not feeling like there's a need to force anything. Because as soon as there's a sense of force, of pushing, it's pushing against the actual true nature of inclusivity, right? It's pushing against the yes. It's actually a no. It's saying, no, I don't really want this, so I'm going to try and relax and include and welcome. But any sense of trying is, of course, going to be that push against. And so we could then say, so if we notice that there's a push against, we just see that. And it's truly just about seeing. Just see it. We just see it. This is what's here. It's almost as if the awareness takes a silent inventory. And the silent inventory just looks upon. And as the awareness looks upon silently, with no agenda, just looks upon, the natural relaxation and softening happens. And it's almost like, oh, how did that happen, right? But it's never about trying to achieve something. It's never about trying to get somewhere other than being here now. It truly is the simplicity of being here as the natural presence that truly welcomes and includes all that is just happening, right? And of course, what we are hearing being shared in our field is that when the light shines upon, the revelation comes. And in a way, once the revelation comes, there's no further work to be done, because that's what brings that sense of buoyancy, joy, aliveness, revelation. It's like, oh, wow, just this, right? It takes out the intermediary, it takes out the interceptor, it takes out the sense of division, and it returns us to a direct connection to source where we feel the sovereign being. We feel that in the direct connection to source, we're being resourced from source. We feel nourished. We're opening to a flow of nourishment that feels really whole, wholesome. And we we feel that sense of no division, no intermediary, direct connection, and then direct experience. And alleluia, right? This is just this. There's this now. Just the wow of now, right? The celebration of now. And the celebration of seeing, of a clear seeing, also doesn't contain any frequency of guilt or shame of like, oh, why was I stuck there so long? Why didn't I see until? It's like as soon as revelation comes, it's like the freedom is here, the joy is here. And the revelation brings this capacity to include that also kind of sweeps in the ways that we can be holding shame and guilt and doubt, and the ways that we can make ourselves wrong, the ways that we can impose judgment and a sense of, well, you should have known better, or that maybe tries to hold on to, well, this is what you need to know, this is how you need to do it next time, right? Whatever it is, the subtle frequencies of shame or guilt that kind of just again come in and bring a sense of division, limitation, just even the subtle sense of you're doing it wrong. So this constant flow of revelation, which is life, right? Life is the revelation. And we recognize that the true essence, nature, of course, is never touched, never moves and changes. And yet the maturing is this ability to welcome all of life and not try to get away from anything. So it's like we're including the sense of like the ascending and the opening to the revelation, and we're including the descending sense of embodying that revelation by being really present with the fullness of life. And to be really present with the fullness of life is to allow the revelation of what we know to be true to touch everything, like to touch the grittiness, to touch the places that we don't feel to be free, to let the alchemy of the light shine upon the places that we feel stuck, to let our hearts crack open in the face of what stirs us, and not to kind of hold on to any kind of identity or persona that is the light or the transcendent, but to truly find out what it means to embody that, and that life is constantly offering us this invitation to be fully present and to allow the alchemy of light to touch everything in a way that can transmute the discordance, that can illuminate and reveal, so that we live in this sense of revelation where, let's say, the lived experience really starts to take on more of a flavor of a wild adventure, a joyous adventure. And even when we feel like we're taken out, we actually realize that we're not really taken out. It's like, wow, that was so intense and it felt like this, but it's like we're sharing from this rooted place that's like, but actually the knowing never doesn't know. The heart never stops knowing. The awake, aware being, the field, never stops being itself. The essence nature is never cut off. The wellspring of nourishment, it never runs dry. It's an eternal wellspring. And it's this, the freedom really comes in this life when we recognize that the wellspring, the living waters are a constant flow, and that we can always drink, always be nourished. That even if there's a sense of contraction, even if there's a sense of defense, limitation, even if it feels like the mind has really got a grip, we realize that it's the mind that's telling the mind that, ooh, you've got a really big grip. And it's like, what does awareness have to say about that? What does love have to say about mind's really big grip, right? Love just smiles and says, beloved, however big your grip is, love is still here, and love still loves you, and love has not left. And whatever the mind believes about how big this tidal wave is, the deep water is still silent, right? A big tidal wave is still water. Whatever the patterns of consciousness are flowing to feel discordant, the consciousness still knows its own purity. It never leaves itself. It never, ever changes in essence nature. And this is what we are, this is what we're opening into, deepening, refining into, is this constant revelation, joyous revelation. And it brings a sense of autonomy, a sense of being the sovereign being the one that is always ever present, connected to source, resourced from source. And in that we could say ever peaceful, ever silent, ever still, and yet ever flowing as life, ever dynamic, ever alive, ever full, ever whole. And that's where this revelation of, well, I just, all I want is to be in relationship with wholeness, with ease and flow. I just want to be the living of life. I want to be the fullness of life. I don't want to be posturing. I don't want to be protecting. I don't want to be trying. I don't want to be making this hard. I just want to live. I just want to love. I just want to be free. I just want to sing and dance and just enjoy. Because that is the true nature, right? This isn't a serious job that we're taking on, this invitation. It's not serious. It's the greatest possible celebration that we could ever even begin to touch the edge of imagining. And so that's why often we say we start with celebration. Let's start with the celebration of the glory and the gorgeousness of what we are. Let's start in the celebration and the absolute knowing that love is here, that this is the truth of who we are, that the glory is the glory, that the light is the light. It's shining bright, it's radiant and brilliant and luminous in every heart. The fullness of love is not lacking. The grace and the glory is here. And life is the living celebration, the bubbling brook that appears as the ever-changing, but never leaves its essence. So we start with that celebration, and then we look courageously, adventuring upon life, and say, okay, what's here now then? What's going on? What have you got for me, love? Right? What have you got for me, love? And we start to be able to receive what comes, what appears on the screen, the play, and realize whatever it is, this is a play. And this play is not happening to make me miserable. This play is happening so that I can know myself to the deepest depths, the widest widths. I can know myself all the way through and not turn away from any fiber, atom, or thread of my being, that I cannot turn away from myself, that I can be so receptive, inclusive, that I actually revel in my true nature as love, as being that wholeness. Of course I want this. Of course that's all I want. And of course I'm deserving. Of course I'm worthy. How could love not be worthy of love? How could life not be worthy of living? How could that ever be possible? How could wholeness ever be lacking and deficient? And so in that revelation, we realize, well, our experience of that feels really true. And so can I welcome my experience of that from a place that knows that I can courageously welcome what feels to be limited, because there's a deeper part of me that knows that it's not true, even though it feels really clunky, tangy, like uncomfortable. That there's this deeper, deeper knowing that can welcome it all, that can welcome the intensity, the anxiety, the stress, the patterns, the discordance, and can allow the heart to crack open wider, 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 can allow emotionality, can allow reaction, can allow whatever is here from a place that says, you are welcome to feel how you feel right now, beloved, and impose no agenda that this needs to change. You need to be different, right? Because this is what starts to repattern the field of consciousness, where we start to reconnect to our intuitive knowing, the intuitive knowing that was overpowered by our caregivers that maybe just thought they knew a little better about how we should be feeling when we were upset, right? Or when we were angry. So we start to come into a resonant remembrance of that our feeling sense is a natural way of being, and that we're allowed to feel how we feel. The mind's allowed to go a little bit crazy. We're allowed to feel a little bit funky. We're allowed to feel and be all that we are. And we recognize that love holds a presence that doesn't feed or indulge, but says, beloved, I see you, and I'm here, and I love you, whatever is happening. And then we notice in the fullness of our direct experience that the softening, the tenderizing, and the tenderness of an open heart starts to happen when we realize that there's no agenda upon our experience, that all that is here is allowed, naturally allowed to be here, right? This is the field of grace that we're opening to, the wisdom, the intelligence of life that is profoundly attempting to inform us of the divine metaphysics of what is truly happening here, and realize that it's not actually as mysterious as we think it is. When we actually engage with being the mystic and we open to the mystical revelation, we open to a field of intelligence. And as we open to that flow of consciousness, our nervous system is refined and cared for and tended, enlivened, nourished, enriched. And the things that we felt like were super sensitivities, open sensitivities, that we needed to protect ourselves from the world, from hard things, from energies that we can't handle, we realize that actually opening to the aliveness of life is what actually cares for and buffers the places that feel to be too sensitive. And it's completely counterintuitive to our learned habit to protect and call in, that to actually open to the moment and allow the flow of source, nourishment, the wellspring, to really drink, like really drink. Drink until the thirst is quenched, beloved, says the spring, right? The eternal spring. And keep drinking. And know that this is never going to run out. That when you know that you can come to the spring and drink, that you can feel the aliveness, the buffering, the intelligence, and all that is needed to feel fully equipped for life. And in a way, this is when in life we start to find that we notice that we're pushing against evolutionary edges. We're coming against what we might feel like glass ceilings, because the enlivenment and the nourishment of our true nature and the consciousness that we are starts to enliven the sense of the soul that says, I'm ready for this adventure. I want to open to the next chapter. So then we feel ourselves at an evolutionary edge. We feel ourselves being kind of pushed. And at that sense of edge, the great glorious thing about this adventure is we don't need to do anything. We don't need to work it out. We just say yes, great glory, whatever this adventure is asking of me. Reveal it, show me. We recognize that as we drink from the wellspring of source, that we're being divinely nourished in a way that resources us in ways that we've never been able to resource ourselves from the mind, from the world, from the intellect. We realize that we're resourced from a wellspring of love, of care. And we start to activate the dormant patternings of our consciousness, the dormant patternings, what I call the blueprint of the child of God. We start to activate what has been dormant, and we start to bring online the remembrance of what we belong to, what we're truly here for, and we start to allow that flow of life to live through us. And we naturally start to feel more aligned, more trusting, more alive, more free, more joyous, more richly empowered and embodied, right? So just to notice as the words are coming, what is happening in your nervous system, your field, your direct experience, your heart, what is being noticed? Because as the words come, the field of transmission is a field of attunement, it's a field of activation, and it's a field in that attunement and activation of aligning with the intelligence that you are, that you access more deeply your sovereign connection to source. And as you access your sovereign connection to source and you start resonating at the finer frequencies of your connection to source, you start bringing forward your resonant offering to our field. And as each of us brings forward the offering of our frequency, we start being infused in a field of frequency, of love, of compassion, care, and joining, let's say, that supports all of us as a field of light transmission, and also is a reverberant field that reverberates out to the collective, right? So just to receive it, just to receive the nourishment, that we're all receiving the nourishment, and that we're all being invited through our own connection to source and our own evolutionary, revelatory unfolding in consciousness. We're all touching into exactly what we need right now. So we just drink it in. We drink in the nectar and we let the nectar nourish us. Sometimes we call it the nectarine bliss, because the frequency of love is like, or the frequency of light transmission is a light and bliss are the same. So as we drink in that nectarine bliss, that transmission of light frequency, it's like we drink in a kind of nourishment that's very enlivening, and we each sip the sweetness that we need. And sometimes that sweetness will purify the field and it will stir the field. And sometimes it will refine and bring certain kinds of recalibrations and deepenings. But what we can be sure of, that we all receive exactly what we are asking for, what we are ready for, what we have made ourselves ready for, and what we are receptive to. So just to be here. And here as well, we bring online deep more subtle frequencies of a trust of our capacity. We start to trust the capacity that we have. When we are being resourced from source, our trust is not on anything external. And it's not a trust that asks us to perform in any way, right? We let go of all the old identities that are about performance and how we are seen or how we show up. And we realize that it's a more subtle support that we are receiving. And the trust is a trust in a capacity. When we're being resourced from source, we realize that we're not the doer, and we don't need to perform. We don't need to prove ourselves in any way to receive love and nourishment. We realize that we're naturally being nourished, that there's no exchange that we're making, that it's freely given. And so we receive the nourishment that is freely given. And so the trust starts to deepen, because it's a trust in what is always here, eternal, infinite, unbounded being, our true essence, nature. And we start to revel in a sense of the knowing of that which never ever wavers or changes. Yeah. So just resting here and receiving. Yeah. Resting here and receiving. Receiving just more of yourself, more of your beauty, more of the grace of yourself. Yeah. Yeah. Sip the sweet nectar of your own heart's knowing.